Imagine you're looking at a balancing scale with everything you do for other people on one side and everything you do for yourself on the other side. If it isn't balanced, maybe it's time to spend a little more time on you. And therapy is a great place to start. BetterHelp connects you with a licensed therapist online who can help you find that balance and stick to it. Visit BetterHelp.com/positive to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp.com/positive.
When you save on auto insurance for driving safe with USAA Safe Pilot, you'll feel like a big deal, even in a traffic jam. Save up to 30% with USAA Safe Pilot. Restrictions apply.
Jacob Albrocht, Tommy Castor. This is Sports Daily on Wichita's #1 sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
All right, welcome back in, everybody, to Sports Daily here on KFH. Whether you're listening or watching, we are glad to have you with us here on this Tuesday. Tuesdays and Thursdays this time of year, we induct the newest members of the Wichita Sports Hall of Fame. So many great inductions so far, and a few more to go here. We welcome in Paul Savage to the program. I'm Jacob Albrocht. Savage, how are you today?
I'm good, big boy. How you doing? Are you doing okay?
Yeah, we're doing good. Today we've got Jeff Jensen, Paul, joining us to be inducted. I'll let you introduce, and we'll get right to it here.
Well, this is really an honor and a privilege to have one of, I was going to say one of Wichita's greatest male bowlers, but, he may be the greatest. He's got more City League championships, so I'll get to that here in a minute. But, Jeff is a special guy, by the way. Jacob, I know you'll appreciate this. You have a love for baseball history that I know you do. And he's the grandson of Woody Jensen, the great Pittsburgh Pirate. And Woody, of course, was a longtime bowling pioneer here in the city of Wichita. Woody is also in the Wichita Sports Hall of Fame from, about 18 years ago. But anyway, Jeff is one of the best, if not the best, male bowler in the history of Wichita. He's a longtime Rose Bowl West employee, and Jeff was an 8-time, let's count that up, 8-time Wichita Bowler of the Year in 1987, 1990, 1993, 94, 95, 96, 2001, and 2002. Whew, I need to take a breather. But he was also inducted into the Wichita Bowling Hall of Fame, and he's already been inducted into the Kansas Bowling Hall of Fame. So it just seems perfect to have Jeff Jensen today going into the Wichita Sports Hall of Fame. Jeff, I'm exhausted after that introduction. How are you? Whoops, I guess we don't have Jeff. Jacob, we'll get back to that.
All right, we're connecting with Jeff here. As Paul gets us Jeff on the line, we make that introduction. It's interesting, the rich history of bowling in this town, whether it comes from Wichita State, who's always good and has, so many years of experience. It has been a really interesting thing to learn about as we make our way through. As I moved here, and people would tell me, bowling, the history here with bowling is great. And I just, okay, like I don't get it. And then it was very quickly relayed to me. And, it has been a fascinating thing to see. Never would have expected that. But, here we are, and bowling's a big part of it. And, it's fun. And I love seeing and hearing the history of bowling here, because it's not something that, normally would stand out for me as we get into it. So I believe we're still tracking down Jeff for his induction. So let's do this if we can. Let's take a quick break. We'll get connected with Jeff. We'll come back and we'll induct him into that Sports Hall of Fame. Paul, do we have Jeff?
We're working on it. Sorry, we've had a slight glitch. And by the way, don't blame Max for this one. This was me. I mean, come on. You know what a screw-up I can be at times, Jacob, and that was on me. Don't yell at Max. It was me. So anyway, but we're working on getting him on, and we'll get him taken care of, because it's important that we get a guy like this inducted. this is a really
let's do this then.
Okay.
Let's switch gears. We'll get to Jeff in the next segment. So let's just continue on with the regular edition of Sports Daily as we bring Tommy back in. Fellas, we're going to switch gears and take a sharp right to the NBA playoffs. And tonight we get the start of a series that I am really fascinated by, Lakers Nuggets. Nuggets are 6-point favorites at home. I'm not going to touch this thing betting. I don't think it's going to be difficult to attack right away. This is one I got to see a little basketball. I don't know what to expect in this series. I'm fascinated by it. I think the most impactful player on the floor is going to be Anthony Davis. What does he bring to the table? It was enough with him not bringing it in every single game to get through Golden State. How do we compare Denver to that? Denver has been this juggernaut that nobody wants to talk about, Tommy. And it's not that we don't want to talk about. I don't know what it is, but it really feels to me like nobody believes in Denver, and they just keep proving it. Are they going to do it again here?
Well, the reason I think part of that is that the Lakers have historically owned Denver in the playoffs. Denver has an 8-25 record against the Lakers in the playoffs all time. I mean, 8-25. Are you kidding me? So there is historically, this history that the Lakers have in just dominating Denver. And so it's going to be really important. It goes back to what we've talked about multiple different times about how the pressure is on the organization of Denver to get over that hump, to be able to, they've got the ghost of the past in Los Angeles that just beats them up and down, basically every time they face off in the playoffs. It's different this year because Denver is the number 1 seed. They are, on paper, a better basketball team all season long than the Lakers have been. Now, the Lakers have obviously one of the greatest of all time in LeBron. They've got Anthony Davis. They're riding momentum right now, right? They took down the Warriors. They feel really good about where things stand for them right now. But man, the Nuggets have that pressure to be able to, move away from the way that things had gone in the past and actually be able to take down a Lakers team that historically has beat them up really bad in the playoffs.
Well,
it's interesting too, Paul, because I think this is probably it for this Lakers group, right? Like if they don't get it done now, I don't see it in its current iteration. And Denver, if they don't get it done now with Jokic there, probably will have other opportunities. Yet it feels like all of the pressure here is on Denver and not the Lakers, Paul. Like it's this weird dynamic that exists. The Lakers are the ones that are, like, if they don't get it done now, I don't think that LeBron and AD, like, it's not going to happen again. Denver could be back in this spot, for years and years and years, yet it feels like Denver's the desperate team to win this thing.
I know. Isn't that weird? I mean, we went through an entire NBA season. Tommy and I believe we even talked about it at one point where we didn't think that – now, this was a while back. I mean, this is probably midway through the season. You and I didn't think that the Lakers would make the playoffs. And if my memory serves correct –
They almost didn't.
Well, they almost did. I mean, but we talked about – we didn't think they would. But we were wrong. But this is the Lakers, and this is one of the greatest players, if not the greatest player, in LeBron James. And AD, we talk about him. Now, the question is, does he make it up the next – down the floor the next set of series? I don't know. We don't know. We never know with AD what's going on with his body, whether he'll play. He'll probably try to get this stuff taken care of because this is the Western Conference Finals. But I'm stunned in a lot of ways that the Lakers are here, and yet on the other hand, I'm not that stunned. So I really don't know where I'm at. I'm sitting on the fence with these guys. But I'm ready for a change. I'm ready for a change of pace. I'm ready for Denver to win this thing. They've got a couple of the great players in the NBA that probably don't get as much attention, obviously, as much as AD and LeBron James do. But it's going to be interesting. It's not going to be a cakewalk. I don't think that a lot of people think for Denver. When you have a player like LeBron James, there's a lot of pride involved in this team for him. There's a lot of him being able to see, I told you. It's not time to write me off yet. And he's probably right. I think it's going to be a whale of a series. It's the one of the two series that really has me fascinated. It's the one out of the two series that are left that I'm going to sit and actually watch quite a bit of it whenever it's on. It's going to be fascinating. But I think Denver pulls this thing out. They've got too much talent. They're a lot younger. Don't they pull this out? I think they do, Tommy.
Well, look, I think that part of it comes down to how do the Lakers attack stopping Jokic?
Well, there you go.
Do they put Anthony Davis on him to get started? I don't know. I mean, I think that at least logically would maybe be where I would start. If I'm Darvin Ham, I'm going to put AD on Jokic to at least get started. But, I mean, keep in mind, Jokic is averaging basically a triple-double in the playoffs, right? And so that's a really, really, really tall task. I don't care if you're Anthony Davis or, whoever you are. That's going to be really difficult to do. So I want to know what the Lakers' strategy is for trying to at least, I don't think you're going to stop Jokic, but at least slow him down to a point to where you then feel like you've got a pretty good chance if you're the Lakers. I don't know if there's an easy answer to that.
No, I don't think there is. I heard somebody on Rome yesterday, and I didn't catch the guest name. It was some NBA insider, and he brought up a great point as far as Jokic goes. And it's like, you're not going to take him away or out of a game. But the point that this person was making, and I wish I could remember who it is. You can go back on the Odyssey app and listen. But it was that you got to just get Jokic tired, right? You got to wear him out throughout the course of the game so that at the end of the game he can't kill you. And that makes some sense to me. When I look at this series, like it's going to be, because I sort of pencil it in for Jokic, right? Like you just can sort of pencil in the production. It'll be more about what the rest of the Denver roster does. And, I think that this is as healthy and as good as the rest of the Denver roster has been, which is why they're in this position in the first place. That's why, Paul, I agree. I like Denver in the series. But, man, I just keep having these flashes of when LeBron took down the Warriors in the finals. And it's this interesting dynamic with the Lakers where you've got two Hall of Fame caliber players in LeBron and AD. And for one of them, I think there's a pretty general consensus that he's still the most impactful player in the game, and AD when he's healthy and engaged and fully going in a game. And you have the other who's in the conversation to be one of the greatest, if not the greatest, who's ever played the game. Even at an old age, can those two guys together get 4 wins? I mean, of course they can, right, Paul? Like, of course they could do this. And I'm just fascinated by all the little intricacies of this series. I think it's really hard to predict. I think each game is going to be really hard to predict because can you get top-level ultimate performance out of LeBron and AD for 7 games? That may be a bit of a reach, but you only need it for 4 of the 7. So then it becomes, can you get it for 4 of the 7? And for Denver, is there a game where those two guys go off and play out of their minds and Denver still wins? That's sort of what I'm looking at. Like, will Denver win a game where LeBron and AD collectively are awesome? Because if they can do that, then I think the Lakers are toast. But if they can't, it becomes a question of can the Lakers do that 4 times, Paul?
It's very interesting. And I think I would probably say no to your question, except we're talking about LeBron James. Anybody else in the league? No. Emphatically no. I don't think so. But we're talking about LeBron James. So I think we've got to say maybe it's possible. I think it could happen. And it's going to be, we got to look at it this way. You've had a full season, 75-plus games. You've had, correct me if I'm wrong, Lakers had a playoff, had a play-in. They had to play in to get into the tournament and into the playoffs. And this has been a long season because these games, these series have dragged out for the Lakers, and it's been a long, long season. How much is left? I mean, I would think that when you start thinking about, gosh, I'm just 2 teams away from another NBA championship, the heart starts beating, the legs get a little fresher, you get a little more rest, you get going. It's hard to say, but I sure can't write off the Lakers. Man, I wrote them off. Wrote them off in the play-in game. I wrote them off in the first round. I wrote them off with the Warriors. I've just about wrote them off every time I've turned around.
Yeah.
And now, am I ready, Jacob and Tommy, to write them off again? I don't know that I can say at this point, I don't think I'm ready to write them off.
It's the remarkable thing, Tommy,
It is.
because to win a title, they're still going to have to, one, they're going to have to beat Denver, but they're probably going to also have to beat Boston. And so you're talking about like, 8 wins away when those are likely the two teams you're going to have to do it against. And even if it's Miami, I mean, Jimmy Butler's going to make somebody's life not pleasant. If the Lakers pull this off, and I don't think they're going to, but if they do, it will be as impressive as anything LeBron has done, because ultimately this is going to come down to LeBron, right? In his, when we talk about it, that's the thing we're going to talk about. I don't think it's there. It just seems like way too much. But, man, if it does, where is that going to take some of the conversation with him, do you think, and that legacy and that favorite sports talk radio topic of all time, right, Jordan or LeBron? If he can pull out a title this year.
Yeah. I think, honestly, I think it elevates it even higher than what it currently is. And here's the reason why. The reason why is very, very simple. I mentioned one storyline to keep your eyes on, and that is who's going to try to slow down Jokic. Is it Anthony Davis or somebody else? That's one storyline to watch. The other storyline to watch is the Nuggets, you would believe, are going to want to push the pace nonstop in every game they play in this series. They're going to want to run up and down the court and play as fast as they can. If LeBron, at the age of 38, can hang for an entire series against a Nuggets team that wants to push the pace and the Lakers get the win, I think that's why it elevates his legacy even more, because you're talking about 38-year-old LeBron James being able to hang with the Nuggets who want to push the ball up and down the court. And if the Lakers can win the series, then I think that's remarkable, right? So I think that's a massive storyline to keep your eyes on, too. How fast do the Nuggets want to play, and can LeBron keep up?
Can I throw out a nutty storyline real quick and get your take on it real quick? Here's my nutty take. You really want to make a statement, and you're the Los Angeles Lakers. Man up LeBron on
words out of my mouth. I was just about to say, Paul.
Seriously.
Yeah, here's my peanut-sized brain understanding of NBA strategy, right? So take this with a grain of salt. But if I'm LA and LeBron's got it in the tank, I've got LeBron on Jokic. And then if they win this series, I've got LeBron on Tatum. And I do not I want my biggest, most athletic, even at 38, motivated potentially. Just make his life miserable for as long as you can, LeBron, and we'll give you breaks, because it's going to take a lot of effort and energy to do it. But I like, in my head, when I'm thinking about how do I match up Jokic, I'm not putting Anthony Davis on Jokic, because I need Anthony Davis fresh offensively.
Yeah.
I'm putting LeBron on Jokic, and just there aren't very many players in the league who are physically more imposing than Jokic, and LeBron is still the most physically imposing basketball player we have ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
Put him on Jokic. Let's see if he can. I know that's asking a lot. It is. At least in spurts, though. Like, if you want to disrupt, go for it.
I think if you put LeBron on Jokic consistently, man, I think the Nuggets coast to the NBA Finals. Not that I don't think LeBron is capable of defending Jokic. I think in spurts is okay. But if you are consistently asking LeBron to try to slow down one of the best players currently in the NBA, a 2-time MVP, man, I think the Nuggets win this series in 5 or in 6, maybe.
I love it. I love it. I was with you, Paul. As I've thought about that for a few days, and again, I'm gonna grain of salt, because strategically in the NBA, the game reaches a level that's a little harder for me to throw out hot take coaching strategies. But that's what I thought about too. What are they going to do with Jokic? And I'm like, who's their most athletic player? Who physically matches up with anybody in the NBA? Who could literally defend anybody? I go LeBron. So we'll see. We'll get a good taste of it tonight. And it could change, by the way, game to game, which is another reason I think this series is going to be so interesting.
Right.
Is because we may see one thing in one game and it totally flip upside down in another. I don't know. I don't think Denver's going to coast. I think that possibility certainly exists, because they've been really, really, really good all year and into the playoffs. But game 1 is tonight. I cannot wait for it. It is by far the series of all the series. I was into Lakers-Warriors for a different reason. As it became clear the Lakers were just going to outmatch Golden State, I sort of began to wonder about this series. And so I'm glad it's here. I'm glad we have it game 1 tonight. 7:30 tip. Of course, in Denver is there the 1 seed, and it will be very, very interesting to see. All right, let's take a quick break. 869-1240, the IHOP hotline is open. We'll reconnect with our Wichita Sports Hall of Fame inductee here and continue on Sports Daily. You got Albrecht, you got Castor, you got Savage, Max Power producing. We're rolling on a Tuesday.
Call in and give us your thoughts.
It's absolutely crazy.
316-869-1240. This is your home for sports. 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
Dude, you gotta hear this.
Go ahead. I think I want to hear this.
Sports Daily is on KFH.
All right, welcome back into Sports Daily. Jacob Albrock, Paul Savage, Tommy Castor. It's another Wichita Sports Hall of Fame induction. Jeff Jensen now. Paul, we have on the line, yes?
Ready to go and all set. And let me just give you the highlights of this guy's bio one more time, if you guys don't mind. Let me just set the table for this for anybody that's just joined Sports Daily. We're talking with one of the great bowlers of all time right here in the city of Wichita, Jeff Jensen, who's won 8 Bowler of the Years, guys. 8. Inducted into the Wichita Bowling Hall of Fame, inducted into the Kansas Bowling Hall of Fame. And it's a pleasure to welcome Jeff Jensen to the show. Jeff, congratulations on your impending induction to the Wichita Sports Hall of Fame. People consider you one of the great bowlers of all time.
Well, thank you so much. That's a terrific honor to be in the Sports Hall of Fame with, boy, the likes of the list goes on and on. I mean, who do you start with? Barry Sanders, some of my racing heroes at 81 Speedway, just on and on and on. My uncle Mark Jensen, my grandfather, it's quite an honor. Thank you so much.
Jeff, I want to ask you, your bowling prime, is bowling a sport? Like, are you still out there bowling right now? And if so, what is a score you shoot for as you make your way through it?
I do still bowl, not quite as competitively as I used to, but because one reason is I'm actually working at the National Bowling Tournament here at the National Bowling Stadium in Reno, Nevada right now. So my schedule's, I'm doing a lot of work in the bowling industry still. I don't bowl a whole lot, but I still average in the 220s or so. So, every game that I shoot up, my goal is to shoot 300 every game. That's just how it is. You want to get a strike every single time.
One of the things that is obvious about your record and your history in bowling, particularly in the city of Wichita, 8 times you have been Bowler of the Year for the city of Wichita. That's amazing because there's some darn good bowlers. Dwayne Martin, 7. Ed Henning, I think 6 times was the Bowler of the Year. But you've got more Bowler of the Year awards than anybody. What does that award mean to people? Because there's a lot of guys that win it once, maybe win it twice. But you guys like Ed Henning and Dwayne Martin, what does that say? How do you win so many competitive situations? Because let's face it, Wichita is no chump league. Wichita is no chump town to win a Bowler of the Year.
Right. Well, they changed it to where you had to bowl in a couple different houses, and they took a composite average, and that's how they figured out the points, right? And then when you rolled a 300 game or an 800 series or any kind of award score, that gave you a couple extra points. So, and the person with the most points at the end of the year was the one that won the Bowler of the Year. And also the city tournament was huge. Scratch singles and scratch all events. There was points awarded for that as well. So, and I was one of the lucky ones to grow up in a bowling center. My grandfather, as you guys I'm sure are well aware of, Woody Jensen, he built bowling centers well before I was even thought of. So my first steps were literally on a bowling lane. My mother was a fantastic bowler. My father was a fantastic proprietor and a mechanic on the machines and oil and lanes and stuff. And he taught me and my brother, and of course my sister as well. You know, we're just a big bowling family, and so that's how all that happened.
You know, I've always
here I am at the National Bowling Stadium working a shift in the back right now.
Wow. What a story. What a story with you and your family. And, I mean, you have a grandfather and an uncle already in the Wichita Sports Hall of Fame. It's just amazing to me. And other relatives, by the way, that are in the Wichita Bowling Hall of Fame and the Kansas Bowling Hall of Fame. It's well known throughout bowling communities that Wichita is one of the best, if not the best, single city with regards to bowling, how serious it's taken, how many great bowlers have come out. You know, Wichita State with, 20-some national championships. Would you explain to me, because I'm not sure I understand, why Wichita?
Okay.
Why is Wichita that bowling city in the country?
I think it started with, like, Gordon Vatican. When he was the head coach there at Wichita State, he would recruit these kids from all over the country, right? And, I mean, fantastic youth bowlers that were coming to college. He would recruit them, and then, boom, look at them. They're winning tournaments. But those kids, I noticed when I was younger and winning all those Bowler of the Year titles, I noticed that those kids, they come to Wichita, and they stay. They wouldn't just go to school and then go off and do life somewhere else. They'd pretty much stay there, and it has grown so immensely since then. You know, it's the destination. It's the place to go. If you're a young collegiate bowler, you want to go to Wichita because that's where it's at. It used to be when I was younger, you know, St. Louis was huge in bowling, Detroit. You know, there's several cities that are just huge in bowling. But Wichita really grew fast, and I think that was part of the reason, because of Gordon Vatican. So, that would be my answer to that.
Well, that's amazing, and of course, Gordon Vatican, a Wichita Sports Hall of Famer as well, with 20. I think in it over 20 national championships. Jacob, it's just an amazing situation at Wichita State with what they've achieved in bowling, and now it's Rick Steelsmith, I believe, is now the head coach. Isn't that correct? I believe that is correct.
That's correct. Yeah.
And
he's a prime example of why that happened. You know, he came actually from Manhattan, Kansas, I believe. First, he went to Vincennes, I believe, and then his second year or third year of college, he moved to Wichita. And oh my goodness, Rick was like, back in my prime when I was bowling in Wichita, he was one of the guys to beat, boy, I'll tell you what. And if he hadn't injured his shoulder, he could have been Pete Weber, in my eyes. He had the ball speed, he had, you know, the turn on the ball and everything is super accurate, and you know, he's one amazing individual.
Well,
so yeah, he's doing a fantastic job there as well. Yeah, didn't they win they won the national championship.
Yeah, another one. I just say another one, you know, like it's no big deal. But just another national championship. Well, it's wonderful, and we're so pleased now to see bowlers going into the Shocker Hall of Fame, bowlers now going into the Kansas Sports Hall of Fame. I feel very proud that maybe we were a part of that. having recognized bowlers in the very first class of the Wichita Sports Hall of Fame in 2004. We had several bowlers in the inaugural class, including your grandfather, Woody Jensen, by the way.
I know. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So we're very,
Woody. I'll miss Woody, boy. I'll tell you.
Oh.
He was something else.
You know, I was part of
learned a lot.
I was a part of the last guy to interview Woody on the radio, and I'm telling you, he was a dream interview. He was a dream interview. But anyway,
I bet he told you stories.
Oh my gosh, I just love the guy. Just love the guy. Well, we're at a point right now where an important part of this interview is now about ready to happen. Jacob, if it's all right, I'm going to go ahead and induct Jeff Jensen, if you don't mind. All right with you, Jacob? Let's go.
Let's get it.
All
Let's
right.
do it.
Well, this is always one of my favorite parts, and I just say how much we thank you for coming on Sports Daily on KFH and joining us and letting all of our listeners enjoy your stories and just know how great bowling has been to you and how great you've been for bowling. And at this time, we officially induct Jeff Jensen with all the rights and all the honors that pertain to this award. Jeff Jensen, you are officially inducted into the Wichita Sports Hall of Fame. Congratulations.
Oh, my goodness. You guys have no idea how much this means to me. This is one of the biggest honors of my entire life. So thank you so much.
Well,
I really appreciate it.
You're entirely welcome, and we're so proud to have you on. And Jacob, it's fun to see these kind of sports and get them on Sports Daily and get them some looks from people that may or may not know much about bowling. But we are all proud of the history of bowling in the city of Wichita. Oh, my gosh. 20-plus national championships in bowling at Wichita State. Think about that for a moment, plus all the great bowlers that we've had. It's really something special. And Jacob and Tommy, thanks so much for allowing me to get Jeff on the air with our show and get him inducted into the Hall of Fame. It means a lot to his family, and it means a lot to bowling in general in the city of Wichita. Thank you, fellas. Thanks for letting me do it.
Thank you, Jeff. Tommy, I appreciate you guys.
We appreciate you, Jeff. Appreciate your history and your willingness to come in here, even though we know you're very busy. And Savage does such a great job celebrating all the sports and, casting a wide net to these inductions. We're happy to be a part of it. And another Wichita sports legend in the Wichita Sports Hall of Fame. Let's talk about Keontae Johnson. Andy Katz is reporting that Keontae Johnson, Tommy, is going to basically try the NBA here. So the report from Katz, the tweet says, Johnson just came through the NBA TV room and said he'll know next week if he's medically cleared. His plan is to stay in the draft and not go back to K-State. He's here in Chicago doing interviews and medical evaluations. There was some rumor that he could potentially return. I would think in seeing that report from Andy Katz that Keontae is probably pretty confident in his medicals. K-State was always an interesting, I don't want to call it a fallback, but an interesting option, because if for high-profile players, this is going to be the case across the board. Same thing for Kevin McCullough, for instance. There are a large number of players now in college basketball who playing another year in college will be more financially beneficial than, testing NBA draft waters, not getting drafted, playing internationally. There's no doubt about it. Oscar Tshiebwe was the most recent example of somebody who probably did better for themselves financially. Hunter Dickinson is a great example at KU, a guy who could try to go to the draft, maybe doesn't get drafted, could absolutely play internationally, but the most lucrative opportunity comes at the college level. I think that's great for the game of college basketball. All that being said, if Keontae Johnson's medically cleared, I do understand his need to get to the pro level as quickly as he can, because he's just got a different Tommy medical situation than a lot of players are dealing with.
Yeah, I don't know how big that window of opportunity is for him at the professional level. And I don't know also what sort of, prospect he has to be an NBA player. He was a great college basketball player.
I think he's physically gifted enough to do it. I mean, he looks like an NBA player.
He's built for sure like an NBA caliber player, but I don't know if we're looking at, potentially a a guy that can latch onto a roster and contribute for a couple of years, or if we're looking more of a guy that, could go and play overseas and make a good amount of money doing that. I don't really know the answer to that, but I do understand, regardless of what his prospects are, I do understand him wanting to go through that process.
Paul, don't you think, though, and if in it, let's say like there wasn't this medical situation that has been well documented for Keontae Johnson over the years, he would be an example of a player. Like if he's not getting, mocked and it's not like a sure thing that he gets drafted, which it might be a sure thing if he didn't have the medical situation, but let's pretend like he didn't. He would be the kind of player that could go back to K-State with the momentum they captured in the last season and probably really capitalize on an NIL, situation and opportunity. If that was the situation. Again, it's not. It's a little different for him. But if there wasn't the medical cloud hanging and it was this way, then he'd be a guy that you could keep in college basketball an extra year, which to me is a win for everybody that's a fan of college basketball.
Well, at this point, I think it's a win for him. I mean, let's face it, there's always questions when you have these kind of questions about your health, about your ability to play, about the stamina that you may have for an NBA season, which is really long. You've got to wonder. I'm not so sure that going into the NBA and taking one more year away from college football, college basketball is the thing to do. I don't know if that's right for this kid. Me, I would err on the side of caution and say I'll go back to K-State. And by the way, go back to that Baylor family tree that you guys talked about. And by the way, congratulations on Tommy and Jacob being under the Savage Baylor family tree. I want you guys to know in your life and broadcast, I don't mind you guys being from the Baylor tree that I'm from. So congratulations on that. But
Didn't we find out Trey Wingo was in that tree?
Yeah,
Isn't he a Baylor guy?
Yeah, he's a Baylor guy.
Yeah.
Remember that? Yeah, that's exactly right. How about that, Tommy? Trey Wingo. Yeah, Trey Wingo. But anyway,
look, there's a number of trees that I can be a part of. The Baylor one is not one that comes to the top of my mind.
No, you come off of my tree. You're off of my tree.
The Savage tree.
Dropped you like a nut down onto the ground. There you go. But anyway,
that tree trunk is healthy. That tree trunk is healthy.
Oh, that's it. We're gonna make those kind of jokes now, huh? Thanks a lot.
Hey,
okay.
get me a chainsaw and I will go to town on that Baylor tree.
Well, anyway, to get back to the point is that I don't think it would hurt to go back to K-State. I think it would be prudent. And by the way, Jacob, you touch on every situation like this anymore. Every situation where a kid's looking, do I or don't I go to whatever professional league he is of whatever sport he's a part of. I get it. NIL is going to come into the conversation. He would do very well at Kansas State. He'd make some money. He'd get healthy. He'd have a chance to showcase himself. I'm not so sure that he wouldn't help himself. Literally help himself.
Well, his situation's hard because there's a medical component.
Well,
to it. That's I don't want to speculate on that. But for guys like, let's take Kevin McCullough as an example.
All right,
Kevin McCullough, who by all accounts is healthy and fine. That's the kind of player, much like Hunter Dickinson, where you're like, go test the draft order, like go through that process and see, because Kevin McCullough physically also to me looks like an NBA player. It becomes a question of ability, I think, at that point. But Kevin McCullough becomes a really interesting example of somebody, and this is where, and again, everybody has different motivations. But if the options for somebody are international basketball, G League, or college basketball, I would love to see the financial pieces of all those stacked up next to each other.
Right.
I would love to see that because, for a guy going to play another year at KU isn't any better or worse than going to play in the G League to me. Not the way college basketball is going right now. And so like that, you're not losing anything by going back to college. Did Oscar Tshiebwe lose anything by going back to Kentucky? No, he probably made a ton of money.
But I will say the difference in all of that is that there is a marketability component by playing in college where there isn't playing overseas.
Right. I totally agree.
Or playing in the G League, right? So you go over and you play college basketball, or you go and play professional basketball in Europe, right? You're going to get a salary for playing in that country on that team. It's kind of cut and dry. Boom, you're done. Same thing with the G League. In college, it's going to be different based on the player's marketability for the university and for the market that they're in. You know, being able to cash in on endorsement opportunities and things like that, where, let's face it, the G League, you're not really getting that. You're not getting that by playing overseas either. So that makes it more difficult to compare, because if you are a marketable commodity at the college level, then that might make more sense for you to go and stay in college another year and make NIL dollars. If you're not, if you've got the talent, right, you've got the talent to go and play overseas or go and play in the G League, but maybe you're not the most marketable, then maybe it makes more sense for you to go and leave college and go overseas or go and play in the G League.
I think so. And the other thing, and again, this is where you got to know everybody's motivations, Paul. There is a world where you become more NBA ready by going to the G League than college basketball, because it's just, that's what it's for. So, for a lot of guys, maybe it's like, I just like, my life's goal is to play in the NBA, and I will do everything I can possibly do to reach that goal. Then yeah, going to try and make a G League roster does make sense for a lot of people. And that's totally fine. Like, that's what gets really interesting. That's where, I don't like saying, oh, he made a good decision or bad decision, because there's about a billion things that have to go into these decisions, right? And Keontae Johnson's got to make that too. Keontae Johnson's is unique because of the medical status that he, like, what is his shelf life as a basketball player, I think, is a major question. And, if I'm an NBA team and I feel like Keontae Johnson, ability-wise, might have it, but I just don't know about his health, that's where, like, G League makes a ton of sense. Can he go handle a G League grind? And if he does, then it's like, okay, maybe we have something here. And that makes some sense to me, right? Like, playing more than once or twice a week for somebody like Keontae Johnson to go prove that component of his game makes absolute sense to me, Paul, that he might take that option even if he's not drafted.
Well, I would do whatever I can to stay out of the G League. I'd try to go straight from college, straight into the NBA, and not go to the G League. That's what I would try to do. And if your destiny, you had any estimation that the destiny that you were bound to have had to do with the G League, I wouldn't do it. I'd go back to college. Make my money, make my NIL, and I would go back. That's what I would do. There's always the G League. Say things don't work out in college the way you think, or at K-State the way you want them to work next year for the next season, then you can still go to the G League. You still can go do what you got to do. Probably you'll also be healthier. That's a side benefit in this particular case. And I'm just, guys, I'm just going to take a moment and say this. I'm so struck at how the world has changed in the world of college sports.
You get paid in the G League. Just real
well, you're
quick,
not getting rich.
The G League salary is $40,000 a year.
You're not going to get rich.
If you go over the months played, is $8,000 a month, which is not chump change, right? That's pretty good. And so, like, I don't know. And again, I don't. Hunter Dickinson's NIL is not the same as everybody else's NIL. So for a lot of players, like, is $40,000 a year and getting the grind and direct ear of an NBA team more valuable than whatever your NIL deal is? That's the part of the equation we can all guess at. We don't know it, right? Like, you can't really quantify the value of the G League. You can quantify a salary, but you can't quantify the value of that. So it's not like they're getting nothing by going to the G League or nothing by going international. I know a lot of guys that I've known over the years. They make six figures playing international basketball.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I mean, there's financial incentives to doing that too. That's why the G League's a nice option.
Yeah, it's a big deal. I mean, there are a ton of players that have gone and made really, really nice livings for themselves by playing international basketball. So it's not a straight up apples to apples comparison between returning to college and getting NIL money potentially, and then making a salary internationally or in the G League.
Right.
There is a comparison, but it's not apples to apples. So there's got to be an individual component on what the priorities are for the player. And so I totally understand with Keontae Johnson making that call.
Proud to have you guys on the Baylor tree.
Is the top end. All right. Let's take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll put a bow on it here. Sports Daily on a Tuesday.
Crazy J's Furniture and Sleep Shop is Wichita's favorite family-owned